Hello team, welcome to another HEP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan, MS Pearce, Ukraine War News Update, first part thereof for the 28th of February 2025. It's going to be a relatively short frontline update because of all the reasons I've given over the last week. There's not the greatest amount of data coming out, partly because of the strangulation of the bandwidth with all the geopolitical stuff going on, but also I think there's just a lot less happening on the front lines, which is reflective of a culmination of the Russians to some degree. If you saw my frontline update last night, which I advise obviously the entire world to go and watch, whether they're interested or not, you'll see that there were a lot of blue pins around Kursk and Tuapse in the Donetsk region, which signifies the Ukrainians are able to counterattack, and they're able to counterattack not just about building up their own forces, but because the Ukrainian forces are weak. The Russian forces are weak. We hear that they are lacking in the Kursk and Kharkiv direction, even though that's where they have had a lot of success, but they've kind of literally culminated. You drive on until you exhaust your own forces through attrition, but also sometimes you are expanding the front lines as you move forward and create these new sectors or salients or bridgeheads, and that means you need to spread your troops even further out. And as you get fewer troops being spread further out, then that can cause problems if that is indeed the case. So I think the Russians are attacking in a much smaller degree of, or with a much smaller degree of intensity, and that is translating into fewer personnel losses, like we've seen. Still above 1,000, but it's at the low end of that above 1,000 range, and it's also translating into fewer videos and threads about what's happening on the front line. 1,060 personnel lost. This is the claim of the Ukrainian General Staff. All the caveats apply to these claims, and you can find those caveats in the description below. 13 tanks is above average. Again, that weird situation where you're having above average tank losses and below average troop carrying AFV losses, and then very high vehicle and fuel tank losses. So again, tanks probably being used as glorified APCs, and they are having, I think, a lack of some combat asset material. The Ukrainians also doing a really good job continually at the moment to attrit the Russian artillery systems. 54 artillery systems is well over the daily average, over twice the daily average. One multiple launch rocket system, 4 pieces of special equipment, and 126 vehicles and fuel tanks. So some pretty high numbers, although the personnel losses have dropped and troop carrying AFVs are still below average, although it's only a little below the average. So I think that's a good day for the Ukrainians. 172 drones signifies that the Russians yet again hammering the Ukrainian land with drones. I say hammering the land because it's not always hitting the targets, and quite often they are taken down over the vast areas of farmland. That's really where you want to take these drones down. But then, of course, there will have been some that got through, and many are shot down also over Ukrainian urban areas. Right, moving on. No Andrew Perpetual lost list again today. Here's a video of a Russian decided to pay a visit to the Ukrainian Armed Forces tree line. Guys liked it so much that they all decided to stay there forever. In other words, this was a disastrous attack. Again, just an anecdote, but I'm going to play it for you anyway. I'm going to turn the sound off and just read out the subtitles to you. So here we have them leaving in the trucks. You've got that guy there he's going to be the guy that is speaking in a second. Now we're busted. I'm getting out alone, stayed there, effing everybody, all the guys. I'm the only one who got out. That damn position. In other words, they all died. We just got effed up. Can't get something out. Don't quite know what that means. Everybody's effing gone. No one's effing in the woods. I can't effing last out in the open alone. There's no one effing around. It's all shot up there. AGS mortars, so that's grenade launchers. Hell, he says. God, let me survive. And now, although he says everyone's gone, it doesn't necessarily mean they're all dead. They could have done a runner, escaped, and he's the only one left in the tree line. But it is, yes, it's an anecdote, but it's another example of a pretty disastrous attack, it appears, by the Russians. The Ukrainians have lost some equipment. Here's a pretty damaging strike by an Iskander. I haven't seen one of these from War Vehicle Tracker for some time. Another Russian Iskander strike took place yesterday, hitting a Ukrainian drone collection point of about 13 Cobra fixed-wing suicide drones, which they claim were about to be launched into Russia. The strike took place near the settlement of Pogrebki in the Sumy region. So that's interesting. Now, Pogrebki, there's a Pogrebki that's just been retaken by the Russians in the Kursk region, but that could be another one, as we know very well that they name their towns very similarly. Another Ukrainian S-300 position was attacked by what looks like an airburst missile. Presumably the target was transporter erector launcher of the S-300 PS system. Again, secondary detonations are visible, so the Ukrainians might well have taken a hit in terms of S-300 air defense system, which is a shame there. So a couple of Ukrainian losses that we haven't seen for some time, but it could just be that I haven't checked out War Vehicle Tracker recently, as I try and do as much as I can on Blue Sky, but it's not always possible. And so it's really important to get the sources. So that's, some of you are like, why are you still on Twitter? And it's because I have to be, because not all the sources are on Blue Sky. And if you want a more complete idea of what's going on, then unfortunately, I do have to check out Twitter. Right, a convoy of 4 Russian trailers carrying destroyed Buk air defense systems has been spotted in Donetsk. So that is evidence that the Ukrainians have taken out at least 4 Buks doesn't necessarily mean it was done recently, but you do wonder what can be done with these, whether these are just scrap. They might be able to salvage some bits of equipment to repair others, cannibalize these, but these aren't getting repaired up to their former selves, I'm pretty sure. Then we hear of, in Kuchetov, and I think this is in Kursk, a gas station has exploded and is burning off there. I don't know if that's been hit by a drone or what's going on there, but that has exploded. And then Russia on fire, nothing to do with the war, but just pretty impressive fire there. Under the hashtag, I don't usually post anything affecting civilian homes, cars or road accidents, says Tim White, with hashtag Russia on fire. But an exception is made here. It's pretty spectacular. It's from the Vladimir region of Russia, where a lorry carrying oil had a disagreement with the road. So there you go. Right. Distant strikes, and very little to say about last night. I've been quite surprised, I guess, that the Ukrainians have been so quiet. We had that massive attack 2 nights ago. We still don't really know what damage was done, even though there are supposedly well over 100 drones sent into Russia and occupied Ukraine. Last night, the Russians sent 208 drones into Ukraine. 107 were shot down, 97 were suppressed by electronic warfare, which leaves 4 to have successfully found their mark, one presumes. That's a really good interception rate still, or shall I say again, from the Ukrainians. They are doing a remarkable job there. They did have a bit of a difficult period where the Russians were getting a number through. They seem to have closed that gap, at least according to the General Staff. So we are dependent upon the Ukrainian figures here for this data. One Shahed there didn't get through, that's for sure, as this image came from last night. Looks like a top-down missile hitting it, bosh. But yeah, not too much to say about that, other than it's a Shahed getting taken out. Right, some BDA has come out. This is interesting, says Tim White. It's reported that Ukraine hit the port of Tuapse as well as the refinery 2 nights ago. So if you remember that wide-scale attack from the Ukrainians, Tuapse was targeted, and it was thought that mainly the refinery was hit, but actually the port was hit as well. Various channels are now saying that a diving boat, Vodolaz 31, and a bulk Shadow Fleet tanker were damaged. The Mumtaz Bay was loaded with coal when it was hit with shrapnel. The port was targeted too. Right, and that's that for that section. We're moving on already to the other section here. News that a captured Russian soldier, a Marine, confessed to the execution of a Ukrainian prisoner of war in the Kursk region of Russia. According to the soldier of the 810th Marine Brigade, the murder took place on December the 21st last year. He said that the Russian army took 2 Ukrainian soldiers prisoner, and one was severely wounded in the leg, another was tied to a tree by the Marine and then taken for evacuation. Upon his return, he received the order to shoot the wounded POW. I contacted my commander of the 2nd Platoon, call sign Gruja. He gave me an order to shoot the serviceman who had shrapnel in the leg. Executing Ukrainian prisoners of war has become more and more frequent. Needless to say, it's a gross violation of the Geneva Convention, a horrible example of Russian inhumanity, and overall, a terrible crime. Admission there of that. Now, Anton Gerashenko reports that a European defence organisation will be the only possible solution. François Bayrou, Prime Minister of France, has said in Le Figaro that a European army is the only solution to what's going on at the moment. So get ready to expect more conversation about European armies. Informed Napalm says, and these are the guys that do an awful lot of sort of hacking and information and disinformation combating from Ukraine. Today, Informed Napalm, together with hackers, so yesterday, of the Cyber Resistance Group, prepared something for you, some interesting stuff for you from the secrets of the Russians. Hackers hacked the mail of the head of the 243rd Military Representation of the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation, a chap called Yuri Pavlenko, and presented it to you and me for study. This box contains tens of gigabytes of data on the construction, repair, and maintenance of ships for the Russian fleet. From this material, you will learn how the sanctions against the Russian Federation affect the repair of the Admiral Kuznetsov aircraft carrier. That's one that's still stuck up where is it? It's in the north. It's not St. Petersburg. I think it's north there. Anyway, it is. It's been out of action for a decade now. Anyway, how the threat of Ukrainian naval drones forced the Russians to convert ships. What foreign components are still on Russian ships, how despite the sanctions Russia continues to expand its capabilities in the Arctic, and how often the equipment fails. Translations of this article into various languages of our allies and partners from European countries are still ongoing, and you can already familiarize yourself with the material in the Ukrainian language. There's also a version in Russian for point-in-time briefing of hacking objects and other interested parties to cause them a burning sensation of napalm in various hard-to-reach places. Journalists and researchers who want to receive a complete 20-gig dump of the correspondence of the head of the 243rd Military Representation of the Ministry of Defence can contact us in private messages, and we will consider the possibility of sharing the information. So I like that, the kind of open source idea going on there, releasing it to the public. And you guys can go and check that out at your own leisure if you want. The links are there in that thread, and these links to all my sources will be in the video description below. But that's really good work, and I'm sure we'll turn up some interesting data. Right, Oleg Ivashchenko, chief of Ukraine's Foreign Intelligence Service, assesses the course of the war. Russia needs a ceasefire. They require a break to restore their economy, accumulate new supplies, prepare their army, regroup forces, and resume aggression against Ukraine. Russia, without Ukraine and Belarus, which it has nearly occupied, is no longer an empire. We are aware of the future plans, and we know about them at least until 2030. Does the Russian Federation, Putin, want to end the war? No, they don't. The tasks set so far remain unfulfilled. Today, Russia needs all of Ukraine, all of its territories, all of its lands. Tomorrow, they will need other countries from Eastern Europe and then Central Asia. The economy is currently weak and has tendencies towards worsening. I can say that everything accumulated during Putin's rule has already been spent. By the end of the year, Russia's economy should show difficult and irreversible trends. For instance, at the Leningrad nuclear power plant, there have been severe technical malfunctions recently, which could lead to major disasters. This applies to new energy facilities in Russia as well. The Belarusian nuclear power plant, for example, faces technical stoppages and malfunctions that could have consequences not just for Ukraine but for the entire region. Russia plans to produce over 7 million large caliber artillery shells and mines this year. In this area, Russia is clearly outproducing all European countries combined. The production of ammunition and long-range missiles. This year, they expect to produce 3,000 of these strike weapons. They're used almost every day to destroy our infrastructure. So that's what he has to say. On the economy, it is worth noting that, and this is what Sikorsky has said, the Russians have sold a lot of gold to fund their war, and that also to prop up the ruble.
European Union gives such guarantees. It's not really a security organization.
Well, Ukraine, remember, has 110 brigades in the field. They've destroyed most of Russia's tanks. They produced 1.5 million drones last year. They are going to produce 4.5 million drones this year. If you'd asked me 3 years ago where Ukraine and Russia would be in this war in 3 years' time, I don't think either of us would have guessed that Russia would only capture 20% of Ukraine's territory. And Putin, did you notice yesterday, interesting piece of news, has secretly sold 100 tons of Russia's gold. The Russian economy is getting into trouble. He has thrown everything he has in the last few months with these Pyrrhic victories, sacrificing thousands of soldiers to gain a village or two, precisely for this moment, to put himself in a position where he appears to be stronger than he is.
So all good points there, but interesting, 100 tons of gold sold. We're also seeing that this is coal. Jane Kiev says one of the cornerstones of the Russian economy is heading south and fast. Just seeing on my thread on my other monitor there, I'm like, it's just a rolling news. Russian ammunition storage was destroyed in Seladove. That's in the sort of Pokrovsk area, southeast of Pokrovsk. So good to see some activity there, some success for the Ukrainians. Anyway, back to what I was going to say. So taking into account the precariousness of the Russian Federation and their economy, the best bit of news we've heard from Trump basically since he's come to power is this. Some people have linked this to the UK, to Keir Starmer being there, and this might have been as a result of that. I don't know, can't speak to that at all. Don't know if this came really before that happened. But Trump decided to extend sanctions against Russia for another year. This is stated in an unpublished executive order. It will be published tomorrow, February the 28th. That is honestly, that's huge and brilliant that Trump has done that. It's obvious that he should have done that. We shouldn't really clap him on the back because those sanctions are already in place. It's nothing new. All it is like, we'll keep them going. All this means is he's not going to do a terrible thing. So if you want to interpret that as good and clap him on the back, you go for that. What he's not, it's like saying, well done for not murdering someone. I mean, yeah. So this was an obvious thing to have done, but I'm relieved, I guess is what I'm trying to communicate. I'm really relieved that this is happening because actually Trump's in a really good position to be able to utterly screw Russia over. And that's what's so frustrating about what's been happening recently is that Russia are on the precipice. Now is the time to turn the screw. And that at least gives leverage for the Americans to be able to turn the screw. They need to do that to keep leverage with Russia. It's going to be an absolute key point that Russia will want the Americans to lift. And hopefully the Americans can use that to the Ukrainians' advantage, although I imagine they're going to try and use it to their own advantage to try and drive through a better deal for them in terms of rare earth metals in Russia or something like that. Now, today, Zelensky is in the United States signing a natural resources deal, which is apparently ready for signing. There was talk about two things being changed on there, maybe something about security guarantees and whatnot. But yeah, it will be probably signed today. The other thing that obviously happened, as you'll know, is that Keir Starmer was over in in the White House in Washington meeting Trump. It was fascinating, as you'd imagine. Trump was all over the place on a number of things. I'm going to do a little bit on lack of knowledge with Trump. I'm just doing a short video in a while because some really interesting things there that shows that he really doesn't know what's going on. And I've talked about this previously, and it's fascinating. Where he's asked a question, he's like, "Yeah, I don't really know about that." It's like anyway, like he said the other day, he didn't know what AUKUS was. How can you not know what AUKUS was as the president of the United States? Like, you may all not know about AUKUS, which is, Australia, UK, United States, and a collaboration in defence manufacturing, particularly submarines and all sorts of stuff. Like, if I know that off the top of my head, right, I just cannot believe that he doesn't know what AUKUS is. And he didn't know that he had called Zelensky a dictator. So, okay, who's writing your tweets, right? And so on and so forth. So I think there's an interesting lack of knowledge going on. And then the question is, well, who's doing everything? Who's making these decisions? And is Trump just a figurehead? So there's a really interesting conversation around that. Not in an attempt to be pejorative or like overly critical just because of Trump, just because I don't like him, that kind of thing. But actually, I'm genuinely interested in the power dynamics. Because when you have international leaders that come and speak to you and you think, well, actually, Trump doesn't know that much, it's actually really someone like Keir Starmer is going to be speaking to the other people in the room, like you might say the adults in the room. Now, on Keir Starmer, my analysis, very quick, is that he probably gets an 8 out of 10 for performance and, doing a good job overall. 6 out of 10 for what he achieved, but I don't think he could get higher than a 6 out of 10. Going into that, it's like, I'm not sure he can achieve anything. So it's about that sort of damage limitation to agree, but also just quietly pushing the European narrative. I did a fact check on Trump very publicly, just like Macron, very similar, on the same topic. And all of that, I think, was done well. He used the letter from King Charles exceptionally well. That was predicted, and he did that well. And actually, Trump came out and said he's earned all his wage. He's a hard bargain. Talking about Keir Starmer. So that puts Keir Starmer's, value up, his currency. I think that's excellent for the UK, and also shows that he did a pretty good job. Bearing in mind there was only quite a low ceiling as to what he could achieve. Anyway, that's my synopsis. I'm trying not to be overly pro sort of UK or whatever in that. Right, thanks for watching. That's enough from me. Take care, guys, and I'll speak to you soon. Don't forget, there is a Jiggerspaw, our campaign fundraiser. Please help out with that. We're almost there, and and it'll be retrospective, but I'm going to do a a raffle and I'm just literally in contact now. She's just sent me a message now from Jiggerspaw saying I'll send over some pictures for a raffle, and anyone that spends over, and I need to work out what the threshold is going to be, you'll get a ticket. It'll probably be something like $20 will get you a ticket. So every $20 is a ticket, and then whoever wins the raffle, so obviously the more tickets, the more you've contributed, the more tickets you'll have, will get a look in on the raffle. Oh, thank you, Ivan. That's amazing. And then cheers, thanks. And then that allows you to win whatever it's going to be, and so we just got some really cool ideas of what they might be, patches from all the units that this campaign is working for, other bits and pieces, some really cool, maybe potentially some cool stuff. So I just need to check out that. But anyway, if you do contribute, and we're almost there, this is just to push it over the edge, press copy ATP for Triad, and make sure that is copied to your clipboard and put it into whatever payment method that you use in the reference or message part of that, so that when they get the payment, they can attribute it to ATP Geopolitics. A massive thanks to all of you guys. But yesterday, JD there contributed $2,000, and he contacted me on Blue Sky to say, I thought I'd pushed us over the edge, but actually it wasn't. So I don't know what went on there. He thought that would have pushed it up to 17,500. So, but anyway, it's amazingly generous. We are so very close to being there. Thank you for all of your support. Take care. I'll speak to you soon.